Grace and Peace. I'm Brian Musser, the Baptist Campus Minister at Drexel University, and this is Peace and Power Bible Study. And for the next couple weeks, this spring term, we are going to be looking at the idea of workship, the idea of putting work back into worship. And over the next 10 weeks, we're going to be discussing how what we believe connects to what we do. But before we get into that, as kind of an introductory sort of video, yesterday, I gave kind of an introduction about the topics that will be covered in workship. Today, I'm going to talk about why I believe this is an important topic and why I have spent a lot of time and effort delving into this issue. First of all, I want to talk to you about my context, about Drexel University. Drexel University is a different sort of school. We typically, although there are a lot of students who don't fall into the typical Drexel student, but the typical Drexel student is on a 5-year program. We have a freshman, sophomore, pre-junior, junior, and senior years. And we're on the quarter system, so we have 4 quarters each year, and they basically match up pretty well with the seasons. We have a winter, spring, summer, and fall quarters, and they're all about basically contained in what you would consider that season. So that gives us 4 quarters a year over 5 years. In your middle 3 years, in your sophomore, pre-junior, and junior year, you spend 6 months in the classroom and then 6 months on what we term as a co-op or a cooperative education experience in the workplace. And some of these co-ops are rather impressive. I've had students work at TD Price Waterhouse, at Amazon, at Comcast, at um, at Princeton Plasma Labs, Intel, and just Lockheed Martin, just some major companies. Had one student co-op for the Philadelphia Eagles. That was unpaid, of course. But quite often for 6 months, 40 hours a week, usually for pay, these students are in the work environment in major companies or doing things that directly connect to their academic studies. And they do this, most students will do this 3 times. Sometimes we have special students that are only on a 4-year program and they only co-op 1 time. But for most of them, they graduate Drexel after 5 years with 18 months of work experience in their field. And they alternate. Some co-op during the spring and summer terms, others co-op during the fall and winter, and have classes vice versa. So when I do a Bible study in the evenings, half of my students are coming from class and half of my students are coming from work. Work is a very important discussion thing. Work is part of our lives. Work is what we are doing. These co-ops, they have an interview process. There's all sorts of planning and procedures going for creating the resume, doing the interviews, finding the right job. Work is something we think about constantly. If you're not on co-op, you're actually planning to get your next co-op in certain ways. So there's a lot of discussions among my students about how to work. And Drexel talks about they get to practice working 3 times before graduation. I talk about the fact that they get to practice working as Christians 3 times before graduation. And we can come from the workplace, talk about it in our Bible studies, in our devotional times, in our prayer meetings, and then go back out. I've had students ask for prayer because they were trying to figure out how to build a hospital in China. That was their co-op. I had another student that connected, specifically was working with the city of Philadelphia, looking at computer literacy within Section 8 housing. And he had the brilliant idea of maybe leveraging the churches in those areas to form a partnership with the city and with the housing that provided churches with internet, provided computer access to those places as well. So it was some of these concepts, I've also had students whose job was to count how long it took to put in a certain number of rivets into the building of a Navy ship. So just different levels of work going on, but work is something we think about all the time. So a lot of this content, a lot of this idea of workship has come out of 15 years of experience of talking with students as they go back and forth into this work environment. The other thing is I look back on my life and I've had a crazy work history. Besides like growing up doing chores and everything like that, I started working on the neighborhood farm. It was like a big vegetable farm when I was 13, and I worked there nights and weekends during the growing season, all through middle school and high school. I've done probably my only I mean my service industry right after high school. I worked at Taco Bell. During college, I had landscaping jobs in the summer, worked at state parks. I cleaned kitchens for my work study, and I've also like TA'd for a work study position as well. Immediately after college, besides working in Mexico and building a sidewalk and teaching English and things like that, I worked for a museum of natural history, curating their bird collection. I worked at one time I had a part-time substitute daycare worker. I was the janitor for that same daycare. I was teaching Spanish and physics in a local Christian school, and I was an associate pastor. So I had like a blue collar, a white collar, and an of the collar job all at the same time. Since then, I have actually worked at a pharmaceutical company doing animal testing, unfortunately. And then later after that, I worked in university research, HIV, AIDS, associated dementia, and I'm actually, based on that, I'm a published author in the Journal of Neurovirology. But for the past 15 years, I have been the Baptist campus minister at Drexel with about a 1 year stint also kind of on top of that where I was the coordinator of spiritual life at Drexel as well. So I had two jobs for a year. I've done a lot of different jobs in my life, and I've tried to learn what work is like for that. So many of us have so much going on in our work lives that it's something we should talk about. And for me, it's something I should prepare students to engage as Christians as they move forward. Now, this lesson is explicitly designed for Drexel students as they move forward. That's kind of the way we think. It's 10 weeks because that's how long our terms are. However, I believe any student can easily get something out of this, but I also believe that grown folk who are already in the workplace will be able to get stuff out of this as well. It really looks at the question, what does it mean as a Christian to connect what we believe to what we do for work? Now, the other reason why I did this lesson is because I didn't find anything like this out there. There's a lot of good resources about work. There's websites and books, and in the video tomorrow, I'll reference quite a few of those. But there's nothing designed as a discussion based curriculum that helps folks deal with these questions as like a Bible study, going through things from kind of one preparing to work sort of position. And because of my experience and my context, I decided that it would be best for me to write one. So I hope you join with me on this journey. All the details will be in the description below. You can find these videos either on my YouTube channel or the website. Those links will be in the description below too. For the next 10 weeks, starting April 5th, 2021, on Monday nights live, I will be I will be holding a Bible study on this content and then posting the relative videos afterwards each week for about 10 weeks. Okay? Hope you can join me. I am excited about this topic. This is probably what I enjoy talking about almost more than anything else. Hope to see you there.